Welcome back, 5th grade social studies scholars, to another Passport to Social Studies lesson. This lesson will be continued from our last lesson now. Today, we will review close reading and the skill of annotating. Let's flip back to our Google Slides and pick up where we last left off. So let's explore this question of what is close reading and how do I conduct a close reading? Well, close reading is the act of having an in-depth conversation or dialogue with the text as you read it. This involves taking the time to slow down the reading process. There's many different strategies for close reading, but let's take a look at this idea of conducting 3 readings of the same text, each time looking at something different. Step 1 would be our first reading, reading to get the gist. As you're conducting your first reading, you want to ask yourself these questions. What is the text about? Do I understand the text? And what does it say? As you're reading, you want to try to understand the central idea of the text and see if you can create a summary or retelling of the text, thinking about the beginning, the middle, and the end. Step 2 would be our second reading, reading for structure and craft. You want to ask yourself the following questions. How did the author organize this text? What literary devices are used and how effective were they? Why did the author choose particular words? Is the meaning of a key term consistent or did it change across the text? You really want to zero in on this idea of organization and structure of the text, asking yourself, why did the author organize it the way that they did, and how does this match up or align to the gist of the text? You also want to ask yourself if you can identify the text structure for this text after conducting your second reading. The text structure is the way that the author organized or structured the text, and there are multiple ways that a text can be organized, such as through chronological order or sequential, where the author might be using words such as first, then, next, and going through the order of events. You might also see dates and the progression of dates over time as the author takes you through time or through a historical event. The author might also set it up in a compare and contrast structure where they're comparing and contrasting 2 or more things, such as 2 or more events or people, and really looking at the similarities and, of course, the contrasting differences. And lastly, cause and effect, the cause of something and the ultimate effect of it. This is very similar to the idea of problem and solution, where a person might face a problem and work to find a solution to that problem. Finally, step 3, your third reading, reading for purpose and perspective. Here you want to ask yourself the following questions. What is the author's point of view or perspective? What claims does the author make and what evidence does he or she use? What does it say to you about the world and what is the quality of the text? You want to ask yourself about the reliability of the text and what is the author's ultimate claim or argument or even perspective in writing this text. You also want to try to explore this idea of author's purpose and the author's overall purpose for writing the text after conducting your third reading. Think about the idea of pie and the author's purpose. Was it to persuade, to inform, to entertain, or to explain? Persuade, thinking about the idea of convincing you to do something, the reader convincing you of a new idea or an action to take. Inform would be teaching you something new, using facts and details and evidence. Entertain would be for fun. This is mainly in fictional texts. And to explain, this might be a how-to, how to build something or how to do something step by step. Last but not least, let's review some strategies that you might use while you're closely reading to better understand the text. Here are some strategies you might use. Annotating the text using meaningful underlining, highlighting, and/or other codes. Summarizing each paragraph chunk by chunk, chunking the text in the margins. This is also known as writing marginal summaries. Posing questions or wonderings about the text and trying to locate possible answers within it. identifying unknown vocabulary and inferring the meaning using context clues, making connections to other texts that you know, and reacting to the text with personal thoughts and emotions. Next, we're going to review our first strategy of annotating the text using meaningful underlining, highlighting, and or codes for today's secondary source text reading. Let's review our cite strategy for close reading that you can also use as you're reviewing a text. The cite close reading strategy has different steps that will take you through the text. The S stands for scan for important details. I, identify the conflict or tension. G, guess the creator's intent or message. H, hear the voices in the text. And T, talk or write about your observations. This strategy is really taking you through the text and asking you to consider the author's perspective and intent on writing it and trying to hear all the voices, all the points of view within the text. It's also important to remember to source a text or document before you read it, which is really this idea of investigating the text. Before reading the document, investigate it and ask yourself the following questions. Who wrote this? When was it written? Where was it written? Why do you think it was written? Is this document reliable? Can we trust it? Why or why not? Okay, today for your independent work section of this lesson, you will be reading the secondary source, Key Events, Westward Expansion in the 19th Century. As you read, you will annotate the reading and identify where the text makes reference to examples of two different things. One, evidence of growth and transformation, and two, evidence of prejudice and loss. You will be annotating the text using the two color keys below. Your annotation key, in the annotation key, you can see the two colors being used. The blue will represent evidence of growth and transformation, and the yellow will represent evidence of prejudice and loss. Before you begin reading, it is important to note that any bold words in the text have been explained in the glossary for you in the speaker notes section of the slide deck, which is located below the slide. If you are unable to find the speaker notes, please go to the top toolbar in your Google slide and click View. Then make sure Show Speaker Notes has a check next to it. This means it is turned on for you to view. It is also important to note that you cannot view the glossary words while in present mode. As you can see here, I can't view my speaker notes. However, if I escape out of the present mode, I can go and see the speaker notes underneath the slide. One example is the word leaps and bounds, something that happens quickly. Again, you want to go to View and make sure that your speaker notes are turned on. As you read through today's text, you are encouraged to flip back to this slide to examine the map, Growth of the United States to 1853, which is available as a slide in the wrap-up section. This map will support you as a visual aid as you read about the expansion and acquisition of territory in the United States. As you can see by this map and the different colors presented, as well as the dates, the growth of the country chunk by chunk. You can also click here in this hyperlink to view and zoom in on the enlarged version of this map. You'll be able to click and zoom in more closely and scroll using this website and the magnifying glass feature. Here's an example of the first piece of this text using the annotation key provided. The idea behind the annotation is that as you read, you're going to highlight using the appropriate color sections of the text that refer to a specific idea. Again, let's remember using our annotation key that blue will be used for growth and transformation, and yellow will be used for prejudice and loss. Here's what it might look like. You can pause your video now to read through this paragraph text and see which colors were highlighted. As you can see, In the blue, you see examples of growth and transformation talking about the Louisiana Purchase and the growth of the country following this purchasing of land, as well as the War of 1812. In yellow, you can see that in the text, defeated native tribes of the Old Northwest has been highlighted, thinking about the idea of prejudice and loss. This process of highlighting can help you call attention to the key details in a text. Okay, social studies scholars, now your mission is to complete your close reading of the document Key Events Westward Expansion in the 19th Century. It can be found in the next 6 slides in your lesson and also in the folder for this lesson. Don't forget to use your annotation key as you read. Great work today, social studies scholars. See you next time and happy learning.